In this activity, we are going to use JavaScript to make an interactive page. JavaScript allows us to make the page dynamic. That means it changes over time. And it can vary based on the user, and that's what we're going to do today is we'll get information from the user and use that to build our web page. So to start with, we want to do just a JavaScript function. So a couple of things. I'm going to embed this right inside the HTML. So between those two heading ones, add a script tag. If we want to talk JavaScript, it's a different language than HTML, and we have to let the browser know that we're speaking this new language. So the way we do that is to do script tags, and you can just put an opening and closing script tag, and when between there, you can talk JavaScript, but not HTML. So you have to be very selective. You have to be outside script tags to talk HTML and inside script tags to talk JavaScript. So the very first function that's fun to learn, and go ahead and add this to your page, is an alert function. And this is written already in JavaScript, so we can just do that and we can write a message. You have come a long ways from Ohio. All right, so we just write that message and we save it, then go over on our page and refresh. And there's what alert does. Alert pops up a box and it prints in there whatever we have written. Now each browser will have its own version of these pop-up boxes. So the only thing it has is an OK button to turn it off. All right, let's go ahead and make where they came from a variable. So to get a variable, we're going to type and then the name of it. So we want, I'm just going to call this place, and there I have a variable. And now I can assign that variable a value. And here, if it's a string, we're going to use quotes. There. So place Ohio. Now, notice the semicolon. I do that by habit because lots of languages require it. JavaScript doesn't require it. You'll see that what you need to just do is be consistent. You'll want to either always use them in a single file or not use them. And you'll probably see lots of examples of me always using them. On this one, I'm going to try to not use it, although it's a little tricky for me. Okay, so here I have this variable place. I assign it the value Ohio. And now I can make this, I can add the variable here, plus place. All right, so go ahead and make that a variable instead of a hard-coded string. Now when we pop it up, notice that it says the same thing because it's using that value that is stored in the variable. The nice part about this is it will allow us to get the value from the user. So just moving it here doesn't make a big difference. What we really want to do is we really want to ask the user where they're coming from. And so instead of here, I can use a function called prompt, right? So if I use a prompt, then what I do is I simply say, here I'm just going to type in there, all right, and that's the prompt. And then what this is going to do is it's going to return a value. So we're going to ask a user. So notice how this is different. I'm going to again save it and go back and refresh. And it comes up and asks a question. Now this time it has a text box. So they can enter something. So they can say they're from Idaho. And say OK. So now notice that the page is responsive. It's responding to the user. Before it said Ohio, because that's what we had told it, but now we made it responsive, so it's whatever the user puts in. I'm going to refresh the page and run it one more time. I can say I'm from Nevada, and the page responds. So here's how we make things responsive. We can get information from the user, and then we can use what they're doing in our HTML. Now notice that where we put it was in an alert box. You'll find that alert boxes tend to be annoying, that users don't like them because they pop up, they have to deal with them, and really what they want to do is just move forward. So let's learn other ways that we can access the HTML. So I'm going to add a heading 2. And if I just add a heading 2 like this, I don't have any access to it. But if on the other hand, if I want to have access to it with JavaScript, I can add an ID and say ID equals. Now notice that ID, the value, you have to use ID, right? The attribute is given, but the value that I give it is very flexible, so I can give it whatever value I want. So I'm going to go ahead and call this heading, and now I can access it down here in JavaScript. So notice that I've identified the heading, and now I'm down in JavaScript, so I'm speaking a different language. This is straight HTML, but down here I'm going to use JavaScript. And what I want to do is I want to get a hold of that element and make a change to it. Well, one of the ways that I can get a hold of the element is with document dot get element by ID. Now notice the capitalization, lowercase g, uppercase E, uppercase B, uppercase I. That's absolutely important. You've got to have the capitalization right or it won't work. And you're saying, I want to get an element by ID. Well, the ID of the element I want is heading. So go ahead, this gives me that element. And now I can do several things with it. So one of the things that I can do with it is change the inner HTML, and that is to change what's between the opening and closing tag. So I can, and to do that, I use inner HTML. Again, capitalization is significant. And I can say I want inner HTML to equal, what do we want to say? Hello. All right, so we can just say hello in there. So I'm going to go ahead and save that and refresh. So here I have to say where I'm from. And it says you have come a long way from Utah. So it's doing the prompt and the thing. And now notice we have that heading 2 that says hello. And we put in exactly what we wanted. We said put hello. Where did it put it? It put it in that heading 2. And therefore it was displayed on the web page. So we can add lots of things to that. Now, I want you to go ahead and add, so we can make this variable, right? We can say, oh, wait a minute, I want to say hello to whoever they are. So let's go ahead and do this, do a variable and get their name and say name equals and get a prompt, and we'll go ahead and ask them for their name. Okay, so I save that and refresh. Where are you from? Nevada. You've come a long way from Nevada, and please enter your name. So I enter my name, Linda. Oh, and nothing shows up because I haven't used that. So I've gathered the variable, and now I want to use it here. And the way that I do that is I say hello, that's in a string, and now I want to add the name, the variable name. All right, so now I can print that out. And enter my name. And now it says, hello, Linda. Now notice this problem. Notice this is not a JavaScript problem, but it's a display problem. I need a space in there. So I can't add a space to the name because they're going to enter whatever they want, but I can add a space to right there. So now when I do it, I get that space. Come a long ways from Washington. What is my name? John. Hello, John. All right, so we can get information from the user and write it to a web page. I'm going to go ahead and add another heading too. And this one, I'm going to give it a value, a different ID, right? And if each ID should be unique on a page, so you should never have duplicate IDs. And I'm going to call this welcome. And so now I can access that ID, and the way I access it is the same way. I use document.getElementById. And now I'm going to use the ID of this one, which is welcome. It has to be a string or a variable, but it's a string here. And I want to say dot inner HTML equals, and here I can say something else. Greetings from Utah. Okay, so I save that, and now I refresh. Where are they from? Oregon. And what is their name? Betsy. Hello, Betsy. Greeting from Utah. I need an S on there, right? So looking at it gives you a good idea of, oops, what do I need to change? So notice that I can access two different things in the way that I access them through the ID. So go ahead and make sure that you have both of those headings and are able to write to both of them. Okay, let's do another thing where we get, now we want to get some information from them, how many apples that they want. So remember the process, I need a variable, and I'm going to call this one quantity, and I'm going to go ahead and get, and by the way, if you want to do it all in the same line, you can. So you can just put the prompt right here. You don't have to define it on a separate line, but you can if you want. So prompt equals how many apples do you want? Question mark. And then I want to, so they're going to answer that question. It's going to gather some information and store it in that quantity. And now I want to write it to a paragraph. Now I need to be sure that the paragraph exists. So notice that this heading 1 is not written until after the JavaScript is done. So I need to make sure that the paragraph that I'm going to write to is up here. So I'm going to write the paragraph, and to access it through JavaScript, I'm going to do an ID. So ID equals, and I'm going to call this one message. So now I can write a message there. I can, again, the same way, document.getElementById, and type in the ID value, and .inner HTML. So notice what we're doing. We're just changing what's between that opening and closing tag. And I can say, okay, what do I want to say? You ordered, and now I want the quantity, right? You ordered, so I'm going to do a plus the quantity plus apples. Notice how I'm leaving spaces in there. You'll want to do that too. So you ordered some number of apples. Let's go ahead and see if this works. Where are they from? Where are you from? So here's that prompt asking where I'm from. And you've come a long ways from Wyoming. Notice this is not a nice way to talk to people, but that's okay. And my name is Walter. And how many apples do you want? I want 32 apples. Okay, hello Walter, greetings from Utah. You ordered 32 apples. So notice how this looks different than these, and that's simply because it's embedded in a paragraph. So there are other things we can change besides what's inside, what's between the opening and closing tag. So one of the things we can do is change the style. So let's go ahead and let's change the style of one of these headings. So I need to get the element, document.getElementById, and we'll do the welcome one. So I get that one, and now what I want to change is the style, so I do .style. And then I have to say which style property, so I'm going to change the style property color. And these, the JavaScript one properties don't match exactly. If there's two, if there's a, like, if there's a hyphen in the property, then it's a capital letter and no hyphen. So they change a little bit, so you might want to look those up to see what they are. But color is exactly the same as it is in CSS. And I can make it one of these colors that I've got right here. So I can just do color equals, and I need to put the pound sign and the number. And now I save it and refresh. Okay, where are you from? And you've come a long way from Idaho. What is your name? Bill. How many apples do you want? 73. And there it set the style. So I'm able to get information from the user and set the style. Now, one last thing I want you to do, so go ahead and change that style, is I want you to make this paragraph bigger. So it turns out we can use this variable over and over again, or we can use multiple variables and write to that same paragraph. So if I do this, if I say, okay, I want to write to that same paragraph again, and I come down here, and I do document.getElement by ID, message, .inner HTML equals, and I want to say something, they will be ready for pickup at 10:30. Okay, so I want to say you ordered however many apples, they will be ready for pickup at 10:30. So if I refresh that, and he tells me where he's from, Houston. Come a long way from Houston. Enter your name. How many apples do you want? 29. Okay, notice that it didn't come up and say you ordered 29 apples. So what happened is this would have been written to that paragraph, then it would have changed the color, and then it would have written this. Notice that it replaces what is ever there. So if I want this to go in that same paragraph, I have to use it all in one setting. So I'm going to remove it from here, and I'm going to add it up here. So now I just have one statement that's changing the inner HTML, so I'm not overwriting it. So you ordered that many apples. They will be ready for pickup at 10:30. I'm going to need a space here, I can tell, so I'm going to go ahead and add that. And now we can say, where are you from? Houston. And you came a long way from Houston. Please enter your name. And how many apples do you want? 67. Hello, Rachel. Greetings from Utah. You ordered 67 apples. They will be ready for pickup at 10:30. Okay, one final thing that I want you to do is I want you, and I'm not going to show you how to do this. I'm going to leave this up to you to follow this pattern. I want you to get from the user whether they want red or green apples. Do you want red or green apples? Have them enter red or green. And then you can say you ordered 67 red apples if they entered red, green apples if they entered green, and they'll be ready for pickup. So write to that exact same paragraph, but use a second variable. By the way, notice you can use the same variable. You could say all, and I can use quantity again, and I want you to go ahead and do this so you can see that you can do that. All 67, or however many they enter, apples will be ready for pickup at 10:30. So go ahead and change that so you can see that you can use this variable over and over again in the same paragraph or in different paragraphs. And where are you from? Idaho. And Sam, how many apples do you want? 135. You ordered 135 apples. All 130 apples will be ready to pick up at 10:30. Okay, so now I want you to go to add that question, red or green. Remember the process. Define a variable, get the value from the user, store it in a variable, and then write in the output. Now remember, it's going to have to go in this same statement, right? Because you don't want to overwrite it, so you're going to have to adapt this statement to be longer to include what color of apples. And be sure and get your spacing in there correctly so that everything is spaced out nicely. Okay, and then turn it in.